So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom, and first up, bit of a warning coming your way. This edition is going to be largely me ranting about limited matchmaking changes and the fuck up they are making with KV5s. Apologies for the language, because I will certainly be swearing a fair bit through this, because it is a complete clusterfuck as far as I'm concerned. Secondly, we'll be looking at changes to one of the maps currently in circulation. Again, not entirely sure why they're making any changes to a map that actually looks pretty good. There's quite a revealing Q&A which features again me ranting about the KV5, but also some interesting changes and another fuck up around another map selection, which we'll talk about in a bit more depth. So anyway, without further ado, put on your earmuffs, prepare for some swearing, let's get cracking. So I'm sure most people have seen this already. If you haven't, I don't know where you've been, frankly. So long-awaited discussion around what to do about preferential matchmaking tanks. So quick rewind to this. Where in days gone by, preferential matchmaking tanks were available to buy in the shop for a considerable amount of money. In fact, I think the i6 is still available. Anyway, whatever. You could buy these tanks, and they were designed to be slightly worse than their equivalent tier 8 versions, because they never saw anything other than +1 matchmaking, so they could never see tier 10s. And that was kind of what you traded off on. So you got a tank that generated extra credits, extra crew experience. You could train up crews in it. They were fun to play, but they had a reasonable chance of success in battle. And you know, a good amount of time when you rolled them out, you were coming up against you were top tier, so you were up against tier 6s. And the reality is that most of these preferential matchmaking tanks were probably about a 7.5 in terms of tiering. So that's the Kv5, the FCM, the IS6, to name a few, Hype 50, 59, etc, etc. So all these tanks were kind of, that was the limitation. You knew that they were not as good as other tier 8s, but the trade-off was that you generated a lot of credits, and the trade-off was you seldom were ever bottom tier in it. About the worst, you know, and if you were, it was against tier 9s. You never had to fight tier 10s. In their infinite wisdom, some time ago, World of Tanks decided to change the matchmaking up, and so we have this wonderful system, which I personally absolutely detest, of the ideal, inverted commas, matchmaking is 3, 5, 7 games. So 3 top tiers, 5 middle tiers, and 7 bottom tiers. Now, the problem with that is, what has happened with preferential matchmaking is that doesn't fit with that model. And obviously, if you're only allowed to see +1, and they're trying to fill a queue, it becomes a little bit harder for them to stack the tanks in the right way. And the reality is, this matchmaking has changed the setup so dramatically that most times you take out your preferential matchmaking tank, the best you're going to do, the absolute best you're going to do, is an all tier 8 game. And these things are not tier 8s, they're tier 7.5s. So good luck trying to penetrate you know, Defender with a KV5, for instance. It's just not feasible. You don't have the mobility to get around the flanks of them, so you're just sitting there waiting to die. Your armor's not good enough against the kind of guns you're facing at tier 8 these days, and your gun is not good enough to penetrate them. And you're screwed. And nobody is playing KV5s. Very, very rarely do you ever see them on the battlefield. I've had mine for a number of years. I absolutely adored it. It was one of the most fun tanks I've ever had in World of Tanks. It was my go-to fun tank. When things were shit, I went and played it because it was fun, and a platoon of those things was hilarious fun. Really good game. Were they completely overpowered? No, they were not. But they were tough to take down, and that was the fun of them. You know, but they were just enormous fun to play. And in fact, I did all my heavy tank missions in for the first few up to the Object 268. Haven't done that one, but all my heavy tank 15 missions were done in the KV5s because they were fantastic for blocking damage. Since the new matchmaking, I barely ever play mine, and most people I know barely ever play theirs. And you know, frankly, it's ridiculous. We've spent a lot of money on these tanks, and World of Tanks has screwed us over. They're not fit for purpose. They're not what we bought when we bought the tanks. And Wargaming, let's be honest, are not making changes based on the fact they want to do this. They are worried about people taking legal action against them, because in some countries you can take legal action if what you purchased was not what you what you've got now is not what you originally purchased. And that is the case with preferential matchmaking tanks. They are not what we bought and what we paid our money for. And frankly, I'm going to have a look at whether there is legal action I can take on this, because I think it is outrageous. So Wargaming, in their infinite wisdom, have now come up with this perfecting preferential matchmaking statement. And I think it's absolute bullshit, frankly. I'll get that out there right away. It's complete and utter twaddle and crap. So they've been trying to work through what to do about the problem, inverted commas, of preferential matchmaking tanks. Now let's take that let's start at that point. The problem of preferential matchmaking. What the fuck, excuse my French, is the problem with preferential matchmaking tanks? What is the problem with that? It worked perfectly fine for a long time with having preferential matchmaking tanks in the game, and this isn't the matchmaking system is a program that somebody has written to pull together the things in the right way. So let's be honest, the problem is not the tank, it's the way the program has been written and what Wargaming want to achieve out of matchmaking. It's not the tanks themselves, and it's not what we bought that's been the problem. Okay, so let's read what they've said here. The first issue comes from the main feature of preferential matchmaking, the tier range balance. Starting from mid tiers, all tanks have a plus or minus 2 tier range. Yep, no shit, Sherlock. So it means if you're rolling out your King Tiger, you'll find yourself on the top of the list fighting Churchills or 12 tons. Well, let's start with that, shall we? King Tiger, that's the Tiger 2, for those not in the know. How often, when you roll out in your tier 8, are you top tier? Okay, that's the starting point. But that's their sort of starting point. Is it means that's the ideal. Well, how fucking often does that happen? It doesn't. On the other hand, there's chances to be at the very bottom facing the mighty IS-4 and a fearsome T-95. Well, yeah, that happens more often than not. Absolutely right. With preferential matchmaking tier 8s, you won't encounter any opponents higher than tier 9, right? That's the whole point. But the new matchmaker struggles with these machines. Why the fuck does it struggle with those machines? Why? I mean, just why? It does because this is the way you've written the frigging program. Now, I'm no coder, but I've worked with coders for many years. I know some of my best friends are coders. It's how you frigging write the thing. It's what you're trying to achieve. There are ways around everything if you want to change it, but they don't want to change it. This is what happens. The matchmaker starts grabbing an excessive number of tier 9s to fill up the team rosters for preferential matchmakers. Why? Why the fuck does it do that? If a tier 8 preferential has an equal chance of being top tier, middle tier and bottom tier, why does it take an excessive, it says here, excessive number of tier 9s to fill up the team roster? That confirms everything we know. Those of us with preferential matchmaking tanks, confirms everything we know, that you're bottom tier or at least middle tier every frigging game. You are almost always up against tier 9 tanks without exception, and it's there in black and white. Excessive number of tier 9s to fill the roster. So that's where it happens, and a result of that, it has an impact on tier 10 games. and therefore has more effect. What they're saying effectively is that basically means that tier 8s, normal tier 8s, face tier 10s more often because of the preferential matchmaking tanks. Now let's rewind that a little bit, shall we? So matchmaking is fucked for normal tier 8s because of preferential matchmaking tanks. Let's have a think about that one. A question for you guys out there: how often do you click the battle button in a tier 8 and see a preferential matchmaking tank on the enemy team or on your team? 10% of the time, maybe. But that whole the problem with preferentials is completely broken the matchmaker, and that's why it's all screwed. Nothing to do with the way they've written it, and that's what they want to happen. The second issue is the combat spats of the preferential premiums. Absolutely, they are not competitive. That's exactly the nub of the problem, which is why when you go up against all tier 8s or tier 9s, you're completely screwed. Your KV5, what is it, 170 something penetration of penetration with its main gun. You got flat armor, which is very good when you're fighting tier 6s and 7s. But tier 8s and tier 9s just clicking the well, sometimes they don't even need to click the 2 button, but they'll go straight through you like a knife through batter. These things are not competitive. That is the whole problem. So yeah, so they're now looking to fix the issue. Reminder, that's the issue that was caused by your matchmaking changes that didn't take into account in the coding preferential okay, let's get that absolute. Yeah, right, okay. So there's a problem to reduce matchmaking queues. Now again, forgive me if I'm mistaken, and maybe you guys in North America have a bit of a different view on this, but I have never ever had excessive queue times. Never. The only times I've ever get them is in these these special modes. Sometimes if you're playing Frontline quite late at night, sometimes you can maybe have to wait a few more minutes than you would normally do. But you know what? I'd be quite happy to wait a bit longer if it meant the preferential matchmaker's got a decent matchup. Don't know about you guys, I'd be very happy. And that's the other thing. And the other thing is to improve the specs of those tanks. Well, if they got the frigging matchmaking right, they wouldn't need to do it. And it gets more and more bullshit as we go down through this article. And I'm pissed off with this, I have to say. This is complete and utter bullshit and just shows that Wargaming have no idea what they're doing and don't seem to really play the game themselves. And they think we're stupid. That's the worst thing. I think they think we're stupid. And maybe we are, but, you know, maybe we're stupid for spending lots of money on this game. So they looked at two different approaches for preferential. And I mentioned this before in Rambles. They've used the KV5 as a template to see how this would work when they were looking at the changes. Approach 1 was to globally tweak the balancer so that preferential matchmaking tanks would have a higher chance of getting the top 3 in the game. So they'd be top 3 in 357 matchups more often than they do now. Well, at the moment they don't fucking get it at all, so anything. So maybe once out of 10 might actually give them something. Ah, fuck's sake. So, well, to me that's a good solution, right? If we could tweak it so that a good proportion of your matches are top tier, you might think, okay, every once in a while I'll do it because I might have a decent game. Rest of the time I'm going to get screwed by all the other tier 8s and tier 9s, but every once in a while I get a chance, whereas at the moment I never get it. But apparently they abandoned that because it just had an overall decline in the matchmaking performance. Bullshit! Just rewrite the fucking program. It's not difficult to change the algorithms, to change the way the matchmaking works. Complete bollocks. So instead they've gone to the other option, which is to boost all the preferential matchmaking tanks, or at the moment the KV5, to make it competitive in the sort of matchups it's going to be. So tier 8 games. except it's never going to see tier 8 games, is it? We know that the KV5, when they change its preferential matchmaking to make it like a normal tier 8, it's going to see tier 10s all the time. It's not going to see it's not going to be top tier very often, and so buffing it makes absolutely no fucking difference. They don't want to change the characteristics of the tank, so an assault tank like the KV5 shouldn't be turned into an ambush tank. Absolutely right, perfect. And it gets even worse at this point. At the same time, we plan to give players the opportunity to decide whether our updated tank is relevant for them. Good. Good. You've changed the tank we've bought on good faith. You've changed the terms of the tank. You've changed its characteristics to be not what we purchased. So you're going to give us the opportunity to decide whether we want that. Good. So we'll get our money back then. Oh, hold on there. Oh, no, 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 no. You don't get your money back. Don't be stupid. No, you'll have the opportunity to trade it in for another tank. Okay, well, I'll trade it in and I'll get, you know, an STG or a, I don't know, a Samur that I haven't got in my garage. Maybe that might be interesting and I might at least play it once in a while. Oh, that'll cost you. What do you mean it costs me? It's a refund, right? We're exchanging. No. The cost of this kind of exchange will not exceed 2,000 gold. So you've changed the tank that we bought in good faith. We spent money on, real money. You've changed its spec. You've given us the chance to swap it for another tank and pay more money for that tank. What kind of planet are they living on? 2,000 will not exceed 2,000 gold, but you can guarantee it'll be 2,000 gold, won't it? I mean, words fail me. Absolutely fail me. It is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. So what's 2,000 gold? Let's have a look. So 2,000 golds at the moment is costing just shy of £7. So I get a tank that I spent, I can't remember what I spent on the KV5, but it was probably about 30 quid. I'm then having to pay another 6-7 quid on top to swap it for another tank, or I have to keep the shitty matchmaking tank that you're just going to give me. Well, holy shit. Holy shit. Where do I sign up for a class action against World of Tanks? So it seems like I'm not the only one that's very, very unhappy with this suggestion with the KV5. There is a thing up on the forums here from, who's this? Cabbage Mechanic, Senior Community Manager at Wargaming, and he's saying, your reaction to the news has been largely negative, and I completely understand that. Well, why the fuck did you do it then, you twits? Anyway, something you've purchased has been changed and you've been told your primary alternative, if you don't like it, is to spend more money. Yeah, right. Our intentions were noble. Yeah, fuck they were. The gold value of the KV5 is only 7,500, so a full gold refund would actually leave you 4,500 short of even being able to purchase a Tech Tree Tier 8 like a T34, which is 12,000 gold, or 5,000 short of a Lurv. The idea that players could have the option of a scale of vehicles to choose to swap to directly, each of which would be significantly greater gold value than a refund. This was not presented well, and we hear and we share your feedback with an announcement immediately. We will be reviewing this with the global team and will share updates with you on any changes when they're ready. Our primary goal is to solve the matchmaking problem, which isn't a problem because only because you created the frigging problem, which is being caused by preferential matchmaking. No, it's not. It's being created by your matchmaking system, you twits. I wasn't going to get calm, relax. So it seems like they have actually listened to the absolute overwhelming shitstorm that's come their way. I mean, what the fuck are they thinking of? here's a tank that there's two options. You can either keep it, which is not going to be competitive, we don't know, but you know, doesn't look like it from what I can see, or you can get another premium tank where you have to spend more money on. Give us the 7,500 gold back. I'd settle for that. If that's what the value of the KV5 is, just give us 7,500 gold. There's a third option, right? Third option. First option, keep the crap. Second option, pay a little bit extra to swap it for another premium that you might want. Third option, just give us the gold. Happy. So some of you might be saying, hold on Dom, you're overreacting. What are they doing to the KV5? Is it going to be as shitty as it sounds? Well, I mean, to be honest, we don't know, right? I mean, I would hope that we get a chance to play these things on the test server and see whether they're any good, because that will make a huge difference into where you go with these things. Because if by any miracle this tank is actually competitive now, then probably some of us will be quite happy to keep it, right? So let's look at the changes that they're actually looking at here. And you know, this is work in progress, right? So they're not looking to change. Well, they're not sure how this is going to pan out. And as I said before, they're using the KV5 as a template to see how it happened. So they're going to increase its hit points. Good. And so it's basically they want the KV5 to have an armoured vehicle with a huge pool of hit points and a high rate of fire. So the first thing they're going to do is they're raising its penetration value from 218, is it 218? Blimey, to 243. And the premium shell accordingly. Okay, and we'd like to see how it behaves with 300 points of alpha damage. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So you've got a competitive gun with a fairly good rate of fire, I think. They're going to increase its frontal armour. The loading turret, so the R2-D2, which will get 190 instead of 150 penetration, armour strength. And the radio turret will become 200 instead of the 150 it is now. Sorry, that's 180 now. So basically all the little D2s, R2D2s and the drivers will go from 150 to 200. So yeah, the loader's turret will be 190, the radio man will be 200 and the drivers will be 200. The overall thickness of the main turret will reach 220, turning into a full-scale heavy tank. Except 200 mils isn't going to stop anybody shooting it. This thing, especially when they just click the 2 button, this thing is now slow moving, fast firing, but still with armour that can be shat on by everything. And how's it going to go up against a mouse or a Jaegeru or a, dare I say it, an Object 268 version 4? Well, even an Object 140. You know, these things will absolutely crucify it, like they do most tier 8s, frankly. You know, at the end of the day, when you're up against when you're in the top tier, when you're up against top tiers of 10 in your tier 8, you're thinking, shit, what can I do? At least if you're in a medium or something like that, you've got a chance to get around flanks or what have you. But in a heavy, not so much. At the same time, we're pulling down some of the current characteristics. So basically, they are nerfing the bejesus out the side and rear armour. So one of the beauties of the old KV5 was the fact you could reverse side scrape in it. You turned it around, the rear armour was pretty much as good as the front armour, but didn't have the R2-D2s and other hatches on the front, so you could bounce shells from your arse all the time. But not anymore. Not anymore. Anything now, tier 6 light tank can get around the flank of you and the rear of you and rip you apart with their tier 6 gun, because your armour is going to be that shit that you can't deal with it. Considering the above improvements, the KV5 will become a competitive combat vehicle capable of withstanding any opponent effectively. Moreover, the overhaul vehicle will be able to oppose tier 8 tanks. What the absolute fuck? Did Wargaming never play their own game? A tank with 200 mils of armour and a gun that penetrates 200, that's as slow as a KV5 is, I don't suppose they're changing its speed, is competitive against tier 10 vehicles. Well, I just don't know what to say. Just don't know what to say. But it's okay. You don't have to accept this. You can give them £7 or equivalent in local currency, and you can swap it for another premium. What an absolute crock of shit. Crock of shit. Okay, so another Q&A around and about. This is Slava Marakovic. Terrible name, sorry. No idea who he is, but somebody at Wargaming. KV5 again. The stats presented for the KV5 are not final. It's just the first phase of testing. If the changes made to the KV5 prove successful, then other preferential matchmaking tanks will get the same treatment. So we'll get shafted! Not going to talk about it anymore. So pissed off with the whole thing. The two vehicles selected for the Warhammer 40k treatment were chosen because of their resemblance to existing tanks from that franchise. So that was the premium KV2 and also the BDR, having that pointless camo job. It was a great experiment by Wargaming to create a premium camo for regular tanks. Though due to a lack of time, they were not able to complete all the features that they wanted. Who was the deadline? I mean, shit. Spend as much time as you need to make it worthwhile. I mean, just what is wrong with Wargaming at the moment? I just don't get it at all. All the positivity I had towards this game via Frontline is just ebbing away by the stupid announcement after a stupid announcement. Why the fuck? I'm swearing again. Why the fuck didn't they have enough time for something they were issuing? Nobody knew it was coming. Nobody knew it was coming. You could have taken all the time you wanted to get the frigging thing worth the money that you're then going to charge people for. Oh, whatever. Initially, there weren't meant to be any changes to the maps with 1.0 beyond graphical enhancements, but the map developers used the opportunities to make some changes. Not all of the planned changes were put in, however, and so that could would mean pushing the patch release back by half a year. So basically, the little change, the little tweaks, those little positions that used to go for, that's what they're talking about since they've disappeared. And there could well, the inference of this, there could well be a few little tweaks coming through later in this year, which is good, I think. Provence is pretty unplayable beyond tier 5. And Slavia will bring it up with the development team. No shit, Sherlock. You reproduce one of the campiest game maps in the entire map rotation. You take it out because it's the campiest, most boring map in the game, and then you bring it back without changing anything significant. What the fuck are they on? I mean, seriously, I hate Provence. I think it's a complete, utter fuck up of a map. It should never be in the game, and the sooner they take it back out again, the better. I mean, it's just nonsense. How can you have a game? How can you have a map where the two sides just effectively there's no benefit for you being proactive and pushing hard? The tanks who just sit at the back, sit on the edges, just blasting the bejesus out of everything that's seen. And even if you do try and be aggressive and push your way down one of the sides or the other, you get shot in the side by all the campers that are sitting on the opposite side of the map. What absolute joke. Why the hell was that map brought back? I have no idea. Another fuck up by Wargaming. Wargaming admits there's some glaring issues with lower tiers. No shit, Sherlock. However, the huge amount of work in those tiers means a lot of work will need to go in. The huge amount of tanks at that tier means a lot of work will need to go into them. Well, get on with it. Stop producing fucking stupid changes to KV5s and things like that, and changes, putting in stupid maps like Provence that don't work. Get the proper maps that do work and improve the tanks. Here's a thought. Frontlines will see some pretty dramatic changes going into the future. Now that's interesting. This is a bit of good news, because going into the future, that's good, right? Because it was a suggestion that this was only going to be a month-long trial, and there was no suggestion it would continue at all. So going into the future kind of infers that it may well continue in some format. Pretty dramatic changes. Good, good. As it stands, it's poorly optimized, and it's hoped that issues can be worked out and reintroduced on probably a more permanent basis, along with alongside other massive changes to the game, which gamers are referring to as WoT 1.5. Is that when they screw us even more with our premiums? Yeah, okay. Good. Please, Frontline might be continuing. Now, I did see someone suggest, and I did like the idea of it, I think it might have been Klaus, that maybe they should rotate it around, so that, you know, for a period of time it's tier 8s, then it's maybe tier 7s, then it's tier 6s, then all tier 9s, and then all tier 10s again. So there's a bit of variety. They certainly could do with a few more maps. That would be great if we could have 2 or 3 different maps to use. I love Frontline. I think it's a massively positive thing, and I wish they would keep it in the game permanently, and yes, continue to work on it, because there are some changes. The one that pisses me off is, I think it's Cap C. If you're attacking Cap C, generally if you don't capture it within the first few minutes of the game, you will never capture it, because all the defenders do, and they've learnt this, is that they push down as far as they possibly can, right to the edge of that red zone where they're not allowed to go any further, or they get artied, and they can basically fire through all the gaps and destroy every newly arriving tank as it sort of wolfs in, sort of zips into the new territory. They're just there waiting to destroy it. And we know that in rare occasions attacking, if you haven't managed to capture all 3 of the initial zones, you just won't have enough time to get all the 3 gun emplacements you need. And the defender knows that, and all they do is just pack that zone C, and it happens on the others as well, but I think zone C seems, for some reason, seems to be more prevalent at it. But if they keep packing all the tanks down on the baseline, as the new tanks, trying to reinforce that zone come in from the attacker, they're just destroyed, and that's just no fun at all. If you're the attacking team and you see that C has never fallen, is never likely to fall, or worse still, you're sitting there to come back into the game because you've been destroyed, and all the other zones are full, and the only one you can go into is C, where the moment you arrive you're just going to get killed. You just sit there waiting until there's a space in one of the other fronts, because what's the point? So that is definitely something that needs to change, and there's some others. Battle Royale mode was mostly made by developers on their own time. They're pretty enthusiastic about it, and players seem to like it as well. So there may be some more experimentation with it later on. Okay, I never played it, can't honestly comment on it. I like different modes. I think different modes, if they put Frontlines Battle Royale in there, then it just spices the thing up. Are self-propelled guns toxic? No, but they can certainly be thought over some more. What does that mean? I don't know. Again, this is this hate of arty. I mean, just screw you all, basically. Grow up. It's another function of the game. Just get over it. It's an artillery. It's been changed dramatically. It's no longer one-shotting people except open-top vehicles. Yes, it picks on targets. Well, that's kind of what artillery does. Just get over it. I mean, just get the hell over it. What's the point? General chat will not be making a comeback. For those younger or newer players, sorry, not just younger, newer players to the game, we used to be able to chat with the opposition team. So the chat worked both ways. All it effectively became was just a complete rant by certain players accusing others of cheating and hacks. And God, if you think the toxic chat between your own team was bad, just to imagine what it was like with the enemy team. I mean, it was just hopeless, and they removed it, and that was one of the good things they did, and I'm pleased they have, and I hope they keep it out, frankly. Things have been much easier since it's switched off. Yes, they have, and I hope they keep it that way. There's an extensive plan for reworking crews in the game. Specifics such as perks can't be revealed at this time. Well, we talked about this in one of the previous rambles. I don't have a huge amount of hope that they're not going to fuck this one up. So something needs to change with the crew skills. There aren't enough decent crew skills. Once you get to 3 or 4 on most crews, there's nothing else really worthwhile picking. And also I think they need to do something for newer players. There was a suggestion that 6th Sense should be an automatic benefit to all commanders have, just to give newer players a chance, because players don't understand how important crews are in this game. And I've said this before, but if you want to try it out, just take out one of your regular tanks and a 50% crew, keep all the equipment and everything else on it, and see how well you do. It's a real eye-opener how bad 50%, 70% crews are. I'll give you an example. Recently, actually in Frontlines, I accidentally went into battle with one of the T44 Frontlines. I thought I clicked on something else, and I didn't, and I clicked that. So I went in battle, and it wasn't even a 50-70% crew. It was 100% crew. No skills or anything, but I had no equipment on it. No gun rammer, no gun lane drive, whatever I have on my T44, I can't remember. Didn't have any premium shells, just had whatever it came out the tin with. And I was thinking, freaking hell, what is going on? It was felt so different to play that tank without any equipment, without anything else. And I think those of us who've been playing this game for a good while don't realise what impact good crews and equipment have. And some of the newer players who don't really understand how that works are really at a huge disadvantage, and something needs to change with crew systems, but to do it in a way that doesn't screw up those of us who've spent a lot of time and energy training our crews up to a good level. And that's going to be a balancing act, and frankly, with the kind of way that Wargaming fuck everything up at the moment, I don't hold much hope out that they're not going to completely balls that one up as well, because it is a minefield, frankly, an absolute minefield. Morazavov still working for Wargaming as a consultant on the balance team. Okay, who cares? Proposed changes to the ST1 line haven't completely been abandoned, just been put on hold as other things take a priority, like fucking over the KV5, you mean? Putting stupid Provence into the game. All those kind of good stuff. The idea of combining the European branch hasn't been completely abandoned, and so far there's about 3 ideas for top tier tanks have been put up, but not much else. It'd be a nice addition in order to put in machines that belong to nations without major tank development. So the idea with this was that there was a European tree that featured the odds and sods, the odd little tanks that come in from different countries that, as they say, don't necessarily have a full tank building program. So you know, you could just have, I don't know, an Israeli tank at tier 7, and then I don't know, Romanian tank at tier 5, for instance, depending on how it flashes out. And I think that's a good thing. I think it'd be interesting. Now, how you stop the sort of jumping from light to medium to heavy, which is a pain in the arse in tech trees, I don't know, but yeah, they probably won't care because it's more money they get for us to retrain our crews. Slava can't reveal the trading list for KV5s at the moment, but it includes some machines that rarely put up for sale. So that's the fucking tanks we have to buy for a tank we've already bought and you fucked over. Stop it now, Tom. Don't get hot under the collar. Wargaming's skin for the KV2 can be sort of seen as a prototype for future planned 3D customization that Wargaming want to introduce. Oh joy. Oh well, whatever. Whatever. I mean, I bought the KV2R, so I can't argue, because actually I thought the Warhammer skin was kind of cool. I liked it. but it's not historic. But then the game isn't historic, it's Mickey Mouse stuff now anyway. Don't expect the Czech tree to grow much. It's pretty much exhausted in terms of potential content, which is a shame really. I think the Czech medium tech tree is one of the underappreciated lines in the game. Fantastic tanks there, really good. We'd love to see more, but if there aren't even any paper tanks that they can develop for that, then yeah, so be it. More opportunities to earn bonds will be introduced in the future, as well as things that can potentially to spend them on as a reward for active play. I still think bonds are a complete disaster and shouldn't be allowed, frankly. But you know, I've got, I don't know, 2,000 of them sitting there, maybe more. I'm getting quite a lot through Frontline, which is nice. But you know, they're going to the best players, give them even better enhancement to their tanks to make them even better. Why is that fair? Anyway, thoughts down below, please, as ever. Okay, some more revisions of maps, thanks to mmowg.net, the Italian blog for these. So Berg is apparently being looked at in super test at the moment, with a view to making it more open. The open part of the map has been heavily modified, with some buildings being moved or removed, and position of individual elements of surrounding environment modified to increases the chances of an effective fight against enemy fire. Don't know what that means. These changes should facilitate cooperation between the open parts and the building and the map buildings. Again, don't really know what they mean, but effectively looks like they're removing this, or trying to remove this block here, which is interesting, which means anything firing this way will have a much better line of fire that way, and vice versa. However, they've still got this stupid area here which just seems ridiculous. On this map you can see removing, looks like a willy, oh, childish Dom, removing that building, moving a whole load of these buildings along here. So less cover for tanks up here means the little village up the top is going to be even more important than it currently is. Open area, it's like we can see this block here is just removed. This open area looks like it's been flattened a bit. So interesting with that. What's this? Sight lines? Yeah, look, they're removing a lot of these buildings, which means creates even more camping positions at the back here, which again I guess matches what's on the opposite side. But I don't know, do we need any more camping positions? Surely it's better to have the building cover. And then what are they doing here? Again, removing this block here. It does look like this area is being flattened somewhat. Anyway, some changes there. I mean, I personally don't think this map has had a big issue, so I'm not really sure I like the idea of making it more campy than it already is, because the issue at the moment for me is once you've taken this village at the top here, progressing this way or the other way is so hard because of all the tanks that are camping here and at the back. And what have they done? They're removing a load of the cover to make it even harder. I don't really see the benefit of that at all, but hey, maybe I'm missing something. I obviously am with Wargaming at the moment, though obviously in a different plane to me. Let me know what you think. Not about that, but about this map. Well, you can let me know about that, I don't mind. Okay, some of you may have seen that the Black Dog is up for sale on the EU server at least. I'm not sure whether it's on the others yet, but this is the M4190 German Tier 8 Premium Light Tank. It originally went in with a Grand Finals skin on it, so it had GF Grand Finals on the side, and it's a nice looking tank despite that. But you can now buy it without all that advertising on the side, and as a result, if you so wish it, you can swap your current version for a non-branded version. There's a way of doing it. Just click on go into any of the links on the Daily Bounce here. They've got contacting customer support here. You can just click straight through. and basically you will get a the clean version, if you like, of the M4190 light tank. Now, to be warned, means you will have to put camo on it yourself, because it comes plain and you lose the lovely black effect, which is a shame. But basically means the previous version stays in your service record, but all the equipment and consumables that were on board are put into your depot, and the crew go to your barracks, and can be swapped over immediately for the new premium. So there you go. But obviously once you've done it, you can't change your mind and go, you know what, I prefer the black version. But just so you're aware, you can do that swap as of now. I've done mine. I am happy without it. So apologies, as I said at the beginning, for the language in there. I just got a little bit heated under the collar with this one, because I do consider they've just completely screwed this whole thing up. Unnecessarily, frankly. They've created a problem themselves, and then they fucked it up trying to solve it. But let me know whether what you think down below. I'd love to hear. I'm sure people have different opinions, and they're entitled to those. So anyway, also let me know what you think about the new Berg, whether you think that's going to be an interesting one. What's your view on Provence as well? Is it as broken as I think it is? But anyway, let me know as ever in the chat down below. And thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. In the meantime, enjoy your games, have fun, try not to take it too seriously, and I'll see you again soon. This is Gamer Dom, signing out.